Hey guys, let me actually fix this light here. So this is my first time going live on YouTube. I've never actually done this before, so mind you. But April is Autism Acceptance Month, and I haven't really talked about my autism that much. I may have mentioned it in a lot of other videos and things like that, but I didn't necessarily go into it as much as I wanted to. But I'm going to be talking about it today. And so the month of April is Autism Acceptance Month, and I've experienced a lot of things with my autism. It's been one hell of a ride. Um, it's something that I don't necessarily talk about. Again, I talk about it, but I don't necessarily mention it in a lot of my videos where I talk about paleontology and geology. A lot of my videos are strictly paleontology and geology related content, and so I don't necessarily talk about it as much. But I decided to go live. This is something I've done, and it's the first time. So if this video looks crappy, mind you, this is the first time I've ever done this before. So I wanted to talk about it. And I was diagnosed with autism Asperger syndrome when I was around 9 years old, and it was mentioned by a kindergarten or pre-K teacher to my mom. So I possessed some different traits of having autism, and one of the pre-K teachers say, "Oh, he may have Asperger's syndrome," and it wasn't until maybe years later that I was officially diagnosed. I was taken to at least seven different psychologists back then, and just trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. I had many different problems. I wouldn't. Um, I had weird behavior. I was acting very differently than other kids. Not differently as maybe like a bad thing, but I had probably extreme behavior where I was throwing a lot of tantrums and things like that. Something was obviously not right um, back then, and so it was then that I started to get obsessed with paleontology and specifically dinosaurs. When I was 3 years old, I had obsessive behaviors, and we all go through this dinosaur phase, but people with Asperger's syndrome or people who live on the autism spectrum get very focused with specific types of objects or interests. Like some people may get interested in trains, cars, movies. I got interested in dinosaurs, and it went on to becoming paleontology and geology and collecting things. And so we get very obsessive with that. And so it was something that was, I guess, weird for other kids. I was teased for it. I was beat up for it. I was bullied for it back then. But yeah, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, or what is known as ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorder, when I was 9 years old. And it was something that I didn't know what to think of it. I didn't necessarily understand it when I was first diagnosed, but I understand it a lot more because I've experienced things throughout my life. I'm 19 years old. I'm turning 20 next month in May, and so yeah, I'm a 20-year old or a 19-year-old now living on the autism spectrum, and I'm an adult. And adults with autism can be very different. It can be something that okay, it can be something that it's different for a lot of other for adults who have Asperger's syndrome, and or well, I should say autism in general. Their autism occurs on a spectrum. You have, the mild side of autism, and then you have people who live on the nonverbal side, where people have a hard time talking or can't talk at all. And so I fall on the mild side of having Asperger's syndrome, which is what we call the mild side of autism. And so, it was something that was really strange. I didn't necessarily know a lot about it. And I still deal with things. Autism is a life. Autism is for life. It's a life disorder. It's something that I can't necessarily control, but I can live with it. And I've lived with it throughout my life. And it's something that I really find interesting because, I have many different passions, including paleontology and geology, but autism education is really um, as another passion of mine, where I educate the public on autism and what autism is and how you can help your child who may be on the spectrum or may have behaviors that may be related onto the spectrum. I've met a lot of autistic people throughout my life. I have many friends who have autism or Asperger's syndrome, and I've met people who are nonverbal as well, and they're amazing people. There's this saying that if you met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. People with autism are not the same. We're all different. We all have different interests. We all have different walks of life. So my walk of life is definitely not going to be the same as another person's another autistic person's walk of life. And so we all are different in many different ways. And it doesn't matter if we're autism or not. We're people first. So we come first as people. Autism is just something that's just used. It's just a label. We are autistic people, but we are people first. Our autism doesn't come first. We are people, and we are people first. So we're just people who just live on the autism spectrum. And I've been bullied a lot because of it. Man, my bullying life was just tormentous. I really, it was terrible. Actually, I was beaten up. I was got food thrown at me. And this is because people didn't understand that I had Asperger's, or people didn't understand I was on the autism spectrum. They just thought I was a weird, strange kid. I mean, when you're that weird kid who people just dislike because you're just weird and you like weird things, you're gonna get bullied. And so yeah, I was bullied throughout my life, and it was something that I didn't necessarily, I tried to figure out a way for me to really distract myself away and get away from the bullying. And that's where paleontology came in. I used paleontology and geology as an anchor for bullying. If I was bullied, I would go and research paleontology and look at fossils on the internet and things like that. And so it was really my interest in paleontology and geology that really helped me cope with the bullying that I went through. And I still think about the things that I've gone through and the bullying, and it's just it sometimes rings to me and gets to me sometimes. But hey, what can you say? I'm a successful person now. I know those people probably maybe assholes still then, but I really had a low self esteem back then as well. I had very low self esteem issues because of this. And I thought as myself as just being a failure. And I didn't have a lot of friends. I only had a few friends, but I didn't have a large social group. I was socially awkward in school. I was that kid who really didn't talk to anybody else and who would just speak weird and acted weird and had weird interests. And so because of this, I didn't have a lot of friends. And that's okay. You don't need to be the popular. You don't need to be the most popular kid in school. If you have that one friend, then that's all you really need. You don't necessarily need a large group of friends. But I'm glad that I did have a few friends, and I also had a few teachers that helped me, and it was something that really, really encouraged me and built my self esteem a lot more. And I have a great self esteem now. My self esteem is through the roof. Not to sound cocky or anything, but I my self esteem was much better than it was, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I feel like I'm going somewhere in life. I don't feel like an outcast as much as I did when I was in grade school. I feel like an outcast when I was in middle school and some parts of high school. But honestly, high school got a lot better. As I moved to Duluth, Georgia, high school got better and my life started turning around a lot more because it opened up a lot of opportunities to meet scientists, to meet geologists and paleontologists, get connected with a lot of geological societies like the Atlanta Geological Society and the Georgia Mineral Society, and it got me able to do lectures and just got me where I am today. So if it wasn't for that move, I wouldn't be where I am today. And autism is not it's not a bad thing. I mean, people can live with autism. It's not a terrible thing. It's not a disease. It's nothing like that. You can live with it. It's something that is encouraging for a lot of the people. And you have many different famous people with autism as well. Even if you're not famous or not, being on the autism spectrum is not a curse. It's nothing like that. We all have challenges. We all have difficulties that we face in life. And autism is just one of the difficulties that I face. I have meltdowns. I don't have severe meltdowns, not as much. I don't necessarily have severe meltdowns, but I do have meltdowns. I had a meltdown today because I missed my sister, and I just went out of tears crying because I miss my sister a lot and haven't seen her in a long time. And so I just had a meltdown with my mom, and it was bad. I do have meltdowns from time to time. There are a few times where you can see, you may not know by just looking at me that I'm on the autism spectrum, but sometimes you can see the traits. If you look in my room, I have a lot of rocks and minerals that may not be a trait. I mean, that may not be a trait that you automatically see, but I do sometimes rock back and forth. I talk very fast, especially when I'm doing lectures or talking about something that I'm very passionate about. I tend to talk kind of fast because I'm just very passionate about and I'm all into it. And so the traits are there. I don't necessarily have good eye contact. My eye contact is kind of poor, to be quite honest with you. And so I'm not, if I'm looking at someone, I may look at their chin or may look at their nose. I'm not actually directly looking them in the eye, and that's different. And that's hard for me because people with autism, people who are living on the autism spectrum, have to focus on many different things. And looking at the eyes and focusing on the eyes for a long amount of time is very challenging for us. And so we have to look at other places. Not only do I have problems with eye contact, but I also have problems with, say, I have sensory issues. Loud noises really get to me. I have to plug my ears in if I'm wearing my earbuds every single time I'm outside because I don't like hearing, sirens or bells or anything of that because I don't like how they sound. And if I hear them, I have to plug like this everywhere I go so I don't have to hear the bus. So during actually in school, if I didn't have my earbuds with me, which would be rarely, if I didn't have my earbuds with me to plug in, I would have to plug in my ears with my two index fingers. I would have to plug those in, and I would have to 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 stay away from the loud noises. You know how the buses and they stop to go. Shh, I don't like that noise. It scares me, and I get really upset when I hear that. And so I have to plug my ears with my two index fingers just to not hear that noise. And I don't like it. I don't like that noise. I don't like the way it sounds. And so I have some sensory issues. I don't like balloon popping. That really gets to me. If I can't be in a party, I can't be near balloons. I just can't. It's an autism thing. I can't be near. I'm sure other people don't like balloons either, even if they're not on the autism spectrum. I'm sure everybody doesn't like the sound of balloons, but I don't like it to the point where I can't be near them. I can't be near helium balloons or any balloon for that matter. I can't be near them. I don't like the way they sound, and I'm afraid if they'll pop, I get very anxious and I get very angry, and I don't like the sound. And I start to cry and I start to have anxiety problems if I hear that. I hear those noises. I don't like being near them. I don't like being near bells like the fire alarms. I don't like those. I've learned how to cope with fire alarms, but things like the balloon popping and the gas of the bus, I don't like it. I can't be near them, and so I have to use earbuds to block out those noises because the world is a very loud place for people with on the autism spectrum. The world is not built for autistic people. It just isn't. The world is very loud, and that's why I'm afraid of being out there sometimes because the world is very loud. The world is not necessarily built, like I said, built for people who are on the autism spectrum. It's something that is not built for it, and so we may be different. So people with autism are different, and it's okay to be different. I've learned to accept my differences, and I've learned to embrace them as well. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here where I am today, giving lectures on paleontology and geology and educating you guys for Paleo 101. And so I like the channel. I like where I am now. Life for I'm an adult now. Like I said, I'm turning 20 next month. And, people who live on the autism spectrum, especially adults, can be very challenging. Looking for work has been a challenge for me because I'm going through this whole thing with college and things like that. And it's been very challenging. I mean, I want to become a professional paleontologist, but I'm trying to figure out the ways where I can do that. And, you know, again, I'm on the autism spectrum, and that's going to be a little bit difficult for me to get to that. No, I mean, I'm very successful as an aspiring historical geologist and paleontologist now, and I've gotten so many different contact information, and so I really appreciate that. But getting to the college and getting to that level is difficult for people who are on the autism spectrum, because we're all about being in this particular bubble. We're all about, we don't necessarily like change. Change can be a good thing, but change can also be very scary, and it can be very different. Even if you're not on the autism spectrum, change can be different in general. Change is different. Change is sometimes good, but for a person who lives on the spectrum, it can be difficult. And it can be difficult because we like routines. And because we like routines, we like to stick with particular time schedules, and we like that. And when we get off of a time schedule, it can be very difficult for us, and we have to cope with things like getting up at a particular time in the morning, or we follow a pattern, and we people with autism like patterns, and I like patterns. I can't speak for all autistic people, but I know that autistic people, such as myself, like patterns and like routines, and so that's what I do. Dating, I'll get into my dating life. I don't necessarily have a good dating life. I am not good when it comes to girls. I've had a few girlfriends here and there, but they just don't understand me. They don't understand my autism. They don't understand who I am as a person. And so my dating life has been crappy. I've met a few girls. My longest relationship was 4 years, and that fell apart, once I moved. But yeah, my dating life was just crap at this point, because I'm not necessarily in the socialite. I don't talk to a lot of people. Only have a few friends, and I don't have a lot of girlfriends. I never had a lot of girlfriends. I'm not this kind of player that. Maybe I look like a player, but I'm not. I don't get a lot of girlfriends, so dating life is just non-existent at this point. So yeah, I've learned a lot of socialization skills from my friends, and from my teachers, and from also my parents as well. They taught me a lot about that. And so I'm gonna try to wrap this video up, but if you you know so yeah, I talked about a little bit about how I experience autism, how it's been like it for me, because it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to talk about, because we have different challenges and we have different struggles that we face on a daily basis. So it's not an easy thing to talk about, but I'm still learning. I'm still trying to progress as an adult on the autism spectrum now. And I think as I start, as I push my passion a little bit more, push myself a little bit more, things will start to open doors will start to open a little bit more. I don't know where I see myself in the next 10 years. I don't. I hope I see myself as a paleontologist or a geologist, or somewhere in that mix. I don't necessarily know. People, you get that. You sometimes you get the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I don't know. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't know, and I can't predict. And this is Cameron Muskelly. This is Paleo 101, and I'll see you later with another video.